Hey everyone, welcome to Crime Scene X. In today's video, we've got 3 scary stories about people who ran out of gas. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. Make sure to subscribe too, so you don't miss our daily videos. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the stories. Enjoy. It was a chilly October evening, the kind where your breath forms little clouds in the air, and the world seems wrapped in an eerie silence. I was driving home from a friend's Halloween party, taking the scenic route through the woods. The trees, bare and skeletal, stretched their limbs towards the dark sky, like something out of a classic horror movie. My old car, a hand-me-down from my dad, hummed along the empty road. I remember glancing at the fuel gauge and seeing it dangerously low. "I'll make it," I muttered to myself, a decision I'd soon regret. The road was notorious for having no cell service, a fact I'd conveniently forgotten. I turned up the music, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling creeping up my spine. Then it happened. The car gave a final cough before coasting to a stop, the engine silent. My heart sank. I was in the middle of nowhere, out of gas. I fumbled for my phone, but of course it was dead. Classic horror setup, right? Only this was no movie. I sat there for a moment, trying to process my situation. The woods seemed to close in around me, the darkness almost tangible. I remembered a gas station a few miles back. With no other options, I decided to walk. Big mistake. Stepping out of the car, the cold hit me like a wave. I zipped up my jacket and started walking, the road illuminated only by the moon's weak glow. Every sound made me jump. An owl hooting, a branch snapping. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. I hadn't walked far when I heard it, the distinct sound of footsteps behind me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" I called out, but the only answer was the echo of my own voice. I started walking faster, the footsteps keeping pace. I didn't dare look back. Then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged. I could barely make out the features under the dim moonlight, but it was definitely someone. "Hey, need some help there?" a rough voice asked. I should have been relieved, but something about the man set off alarm bells in my head. "No, I'm good. Just heading to the gas station," I replied, trying to sound confident. He chuckled, a low, unsettling sound. "You won't make it there before it closes. Come on, I'll give you a lift." Every instinct screamed not to get in the car with a stranger, especially in these circumstances. "Thanks, but I'll walk," I said, quickening my pace. He shrugged. "Suit yourself," he said, and walked back to his car. I watched him drive off, feeling a mix of relief and unease. The gas station was in sight when I heard a car approaching from behind. It was the same guy. "Changed your mind?" he called out, slowing down beside me. "Thanks, but I'm almost there," I said, avoiding eye contact. He didn't move, just sat there, watching me. "You never know what kind of crazies are out here at night," he said, his tone dark. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. "I'll take my chances," I said, and started walking again. He finally drove off, but the encounter left me shaken. I finally reached the gas station, but as my luck would have it, it was closed. The neon open sign flickered mockingly in the darkness. I leaned against the door, feeling a mix of frustration and fear. I was truly stranded. Then I remembered, some gas stations have emergency call boxes. I searched around and found it on the side of the building. I picked up the receiver, my fingers crossed. After a few rings, a sleepy voice answered. "Hello, Redwood Gas Station. How can I help you?" the voice said, sounding more annoyed than concerned. I quickly explained my situation. There was a pause and then, "All right, I'll be there in about 15 minutes. Stay put." Relief washed over me. I thanked him profusely and hung up. I decided to wait inside the small shelter of the station's overhang. The night seemed to grow colder, and the trees rustled ominously in the wind. I must have been waiting for about 10 minutes when I heard a car approaching. A wave of relief washed over me, thinking it was the gas station attendant. But as the car came into view, my heart sank. It was the same car from before, the guy who had offered me a ride. He pulled up to the station and rolled down his window. "Looks like you could use that ride after all," he said with a smirk. I backed away, shaking my head. "The attendant is on his way. I'll just wait." He shrugged. "Suit yourself. But out here, you never know who you might run into, or who might be watching from the woods." He laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine, and then drove off. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself I was overreacting, but his words lingered in my mind. I was more alert now, scanning the surrounding darkness for any sign of movement. Finally, I saw headlights approaching, and this time it was the gas station attendant's truck. He was a middle-aged man, gruff but kind. He filled a gas can, and we drove back to my car in silence. When we got there, my car looked so forlorn, bathed in the truck's headlights. The attendant filled up my tank and gave me a nod. "You should be good now," he said. "Be careful out here." I thanked him, and he drove off, leaving me alone once again. I got into my car and locked the doors immediately. As I started the engine, I glanced into the rearview mirror and froze. There was a figure standing at the edge of the woods, just within the reach of my car's taillights. I couldn't make out any features, but I knew it was him, the guy who had offered me a ride twice. He stood there, motionless, just watching. My heart raced as I put the car into gear and drove off as fast as I could. I didn't look back, not even once. The drive home was a blur, my mind replaying the night's events over and over. When I finally made it home, I was a mess of nerves. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even safe inside my house. I peeked through the curtains, half expecting to see that guy standing out there, but there was nothing. I didn't sleep much that night, or many nights after. I kept thinking about the what-ifs. What if I had accepted his ride? What if the attendant hadn't come? The experience changed me. I'm more cautious now, always making sure my phone is charged and my tank is full, especially when driving at night. It was one of those evenings that felt a bit off from the start. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, and the twilight cast long, creeping shadows across the road. I was driving back from a friend's house, a route I'd taken 100 times before, but tonight, it felt different. The radio was playing some forgettable tune, barely audible over the hum of my old car's engine. As I glanced at the fuel gauge, a sinking feeling hit me. The needle was perilously close to E. "Not now," I muttered to myself, scanning the road for any sign of a gas station. The road was notoriously barren, flanked by dense woods that seemed to swallow up the remaining light. I'd always laughed off my friends' stories about this road. They'd spin tales of strange occurrences and unnerving encounters, but I never bought into them. After all, what's scary about a few trees and an old road? But as my car began to sputter, that skepticism started to wane. The engine coughed, a clear warning that it was running on fumes. Panic set in as the car coasted to a stop, the power steering failing as the engine died. The silence that followed was oppressive, only broken by the ticking of the cooling engine. I reached for my phone, only to remember that I'd left it charging back at my friend's place. Great, I thought. Just great. I sat there for a moment, trying to decide whether to stay put or seek help. The darkness outside felt like a thick blanket, smothering and impenetrable. With a deep breath, I opened the car door and stepped out into the cool night air. The road stretched out in both directions, empty and unwelcoming. Choosing a direction felt like a gamble, but staying put wasn't an option. I locked the car and started walking, my footsteps the only sound in a world that suddenly felt too quiet. The trees seemed to lean in, watching me as I passed. Every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of fear through me. I told myself it was just the wind, just an animal. But as the night grew darker and the isolation more profound, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone on that road. And that's when I heard it, a sound that chilled me to the bone, a faint, yet distinct shuffle of footsteps somewhere behind me. My heart pounded in my chest as I quickened my pace, not daring to look back. Rational thoughts battled with primal fear. It could be an animal, or worse, someone with ill intent. The stories I had dismissed earlier now swirled in my head, feeding my anxiety. Every shadow seemed to move, every noise magnified in the silent, oppressive darkness. I kept walking, each step feeling heavier than the last, the sense of being followed growing stronger. Then abruptly, the footsteps stopped. I paused too, holding my breath, listening. Silence. I mustered the courage to glance back. Nothing but the dark, empty road. Trying to calm my racing heart, I continued, my eyes straining in the darkness for any sign of civilization. Time seemed to stretch, the distance feeling longer than it ever had in the safety of my car. Just when I thought I might be getting somewhere, a chilling realization struck me. The road ahead looked exactly the same as the stretch I just walked. The same trees, the same curves in the road. It was as if I hadn't moved at all. Panic surged through me. I started to run, the sound of my footsteps loud in my ears. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pushed myself, hoping to see some sign of life, a house, a car, anything. But there was nothing. Just the endless road and the encroaching trees. Then in the distance I saw it, a faint light. Hope surged through me. I sprinted towards it, my legs burning with the effort. As I got closer, I realized it was a solitary street lamp, standing like a sentinel at a crossroads. Under its yellow glow was a gas station, seemingly abandoned. Relief washed over me. I approached the station, peering through the dusty windows. It was empty, save for old, rusted pumps and a counter littered with forgotten items. The door creaked eerily as I pushed it open, calling out, "Hello? Anyone here?" No response. I wandered inside, looking for a phone or any means of communication. The place felt frozen in time. Then I heard it again, the footsteps right outside the door. I froze, my heart in my throat. The door swung open slowly, and standing there was a figure, shadowed and indistinct under the street lamp. "Car trouble?" a voice asked, surprisingly calm and ordinary. I nodded, unable to find my voice. The figure stepped into the light, revealing an elderly man with kind eyes. "Name's Harold," he said, extending a hand. "I run this old place. Not much use these days, but I keep it around. You're lucky I heard you. Not many people come down this road anymore." Relief and gratitude overwhelmed me. Harold helped me get some gas from an old reserve he had, and even offered to escort me back to my car. As we walked, the road didn't seem as menacing anymore, and the shadows less threatening. Harold's presence was a comforting reminder of the ordinary world. When we reached my car, I thanked Harold profusely. He just nodded, a small smile on his face. "Be careful out there," he said. "This road can play tricks on you at night." As I drove off, the gas station and Harold disappearing in my rearview mirror, I couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of unease. The night's events felt surreal, like a bad dream, but the empty gas can in my back seat was a stark reminder that it was all too real. It was a night like any other, or so I thought, as I drove down the desolate highway. The moon was a thin crescent, barely shedding light on the road. My car, a trusty old sedan, hummed along, but something felt off. The fuel gauge had been acting up lately, and right as I thought about it, the car sputtered. A sinking feeling hit me. I was out of gas. I pulled over, my heart pounding. My phone's battery was dead, and I remembered passing a sign earlier. "Next gas station, 50 miles. The darkness seemed to close in, and every rustle in the nearby woods made me jump. I decided to stay in the car until daylight, but sleep was impossible. Every sound seemed amplified, from the creaking of the trees to the distant howling of an animal. My imagination ran wild, picturing all sorts of dangers lurking in the shadows. As the night dragged on, I saw headlights approaching. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The car slowed down, then stopped right behind me. My heart raced as I saw a figure step out, silhouetted against the headlights. "Need some help?" a voice called out. It was deep and rough. I couldn't see the person's face, but something about the situation felt wrong. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Then, the figure started walking towards my car. Panic set in. I fumbled with the locks, making sure they were secure. The figure knocked on my window. "Hey, open up. I just want to help." But something in his tone didn't seem right. It was too insistent, too eager. I stayed silent, hoping he would leave. But he didn't. He started circling the car, trying the doors, tapping on the windows. I was frozen in fear. What did he want? Was he just a good Samaritan, or something much worse? After what felt like an eternity, he finally walked back to his car and drove off. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. As the sky began to lighten, I realized I had survived the night. When the sun finally rose, I gathered my courage and started walking, determined to reach the next gas station. I ended up getting a ride from someone who saw me walking on the side of the road. They took me to the gas station and back to my car, and I paid them for being so kind. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video, comment what you thought, and subscribe for daily uploads.